So I'm having a, well, we both are. We're both having butternut squash soup that I'd made and canned earlier with sprouted lentils and coconut milk. It's really good. With these crackers.
Yeah.
And the ingredients on those crackers aren't too bad, but although they are non-GMO verified, not organic. So, probably all of those seeds would have, and whatever, and for all I know, the brown rice too, for the flour, would have had Roundup applied to them, so that as used as a seed desiccant. So, probably eating a whole bunch of Roundup right now.
Rounding yourself up. A great big Roundup in the sky.
Anyway, having said that, they are yum.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Where they come from. Yeah, there's a lot of, it says it's vegan, no artificial colors, flavors, low saturated fat.
But frankly, unless you're growing your own food or harvesting it from the wild where you know that it's clean, which where is that? You know, you're getting toxins anyway.
Certified gluten-free, no trans fat, no cholesterol. They even have a little recipe for baked hummus.
My sister was telling me about, apparently there's a bunch of deer dying now. Something about their guts are rotting out and something, I don't know.
Sounds like a wasting kind of disease.
Yeah.
Fun times. Okay.
So good luck with the venison. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm still talking about the sacred text of the world. I was going through some of that this morning. And we watched this DVD about Thailand. And neither one of us enjoyed it. But having said that,
That's worse.
at least it wasn't, you do see some nice scenery.
Yeah.
And some nice, some important historical sites, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's not your typical, here's how you can spend money in Thailand video. So
doing stupid stuff that you can do here, like going to
go to the
bars.
bar, and here you can buy lunch at this restaurant, which is probably like lunch that you can buy at a restaurant down the street. So anyway, so having said that, this video is much better done than most of its type. So,
if you like that kind of.
Yeah. Sacred Text of the World continued. Lecture 20, 5 Confucian classics, 2 canons, the 5 classics, and the 4 books. Confucius, 551, 479 BCE. Rujia, School of Scholars. Confucianism has a concept of moral force called heaven, Tian, that isn't exactly a god, but may reward, punish behavior. So they have ancestor worship. James Legge, Scottish, translated and published The Religions of China, Confucianism and Taoism Described.
Those are very good incidents, and I think he was impressed with them. I've owned all of them, I think, pretty good.
5 Confucian classics. The Odes, which is 305 poems, 10 to 7th century BCE. The Documents, the Rites, the Changes, the Spring and Autumn Annals. These texts preceded Confucius. The mere glimpse of a plain cap could harry me with such longing, could cause pain so dire, that the mere glimpse of a plain coat could stab my heart with grief. Enough, take me with you to your home. This is a poem that he quoted on the thing. It's not in the book, unfortunately, so I had to listen to it carefully to get it down, because I couldn't get subtitles on it. I'm sort of thinking now it might be my machine, because I've had this problem with a few recently, and usually the great courses I can get the subtitles on. So I think it's my machine.
It could be, but look at this flower.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
So
James
tough.
made a flower with the crackers.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Fits
so he says this poem seems to be a love poem, but Confucian scholars read it and interpreted the emotion as anguish caused by someone dressed inappropriately. In their clothing wasn't appropriate for mourning their parents. And
Which is kind of sad.
it's wild.
Scholars can do all
How-
sorts of stupid stuff.
Yeah,
It's not just nowadays. You know? In the past.
because I don't know how anyone could read that
yeah,
way.
I suppose.
So anyway, 213 BCE, first emperor had texts burned and buried scholars alive because emperor wanted history to begin with him. Some documents had been hidden, but 18th century scholars said that the old texts were actually 4th century forgeries. Yellow Springs is the underworld, and I guess James talked about that a little bit. There was a tunnel into the underworld to reunite with Mother, and suspected this was anyway. This is like rebirth, reuniting with your mother through a tunnel, right? So, lecture 21, 4 books of Neo-Confucianism. Yi Jing is an ancient manual for divination, and I always thought it was I Ching or something.
You just say that CH without touch. You just say it
Anyway,
softly, right?
milfoil stalks or later coins create hexagram used to predict future or a guide. Core text, 64 graphs of 6 stacked horizontal lines with title and statement for each. The solid lines are yang, the broken are yin. Lecturer cast coins and got sway or following. And apparently this is read from the bottom up. I can't remember. My ex had gotten me a set, and I still had it, and I played with it a little bit when James and I got together, but over the years it has been packed away because, as I mentioned, I thought I was moving, and so my life just, it went into storage, basically. My whole life went into shambles, and this has been very hard for me to deal with. So anyway, so since this guy, the lecturer, got sway or following, he asked for advice from colleagues to fine-tune his lectures for this course. 9 in beginning means he should get help from colleagues and persevere for good results. And I really think he succeeded here. I'm really enjoying this course he's put together. Personally, this is a quote from him that I had to get down exactly because I thought it was perfect. Personally, I have my doubts about whether the Yi Ching really taps into the underlying principles of the universe, but I do think that it actually works in a functional sense. There's something about focusing one's attention on a particular situation or a problem, and then trying to relate it to cryptic statements such as those line judgments, and that helps you see things in a different way, or it can provoke new insights as you try to match these to the situations at hand. And this is exactly what I felt when I was playing with the I Ching. I thought, wow, does this ever work? Whatever problem I was having, I would ask, I'd cast the thing, and I'd be like, this is wild. So then I went and looked into more ancient Asian theologies, stuff like that, whatever. And I thought, wow, does that ever not make sense? And so I was thinking, okay, well, I was working through it. Well, how can this be? And then I thought the same thing that he did. That, you know, there's really something to that. Just stepping back for a minute and trying to think things through from a different perspective, right? Because you get this cryptic thing and you're like, well, how can this apply to my situation? And so it gets you thinking about things in a different way. And I think that's how it works out. But I'd highly recommend it.
One of the things it might be is gets you to acknowledge there might be a problem. I think a lot of times people just live through life and they don't understand that they've got a problem.
Yeah.
So,
So, anyway, I wanted to mention, I wrote down here that yin and yang, that's how I thought that was pronounced, and it's not. It's yin and yang. Didn't know that. So this has been very educational for me. Anyway, Neo-Confucianism scholar Zhu Ji, 1130 to 1200, theorized that all is a combination of Li, principle, and Qi, vital energy. Human nature is good if we work according to our Li, the blueprint. Zhu Ji had his students concentrate on the Analects, the Mencius, the Great Learning, and the Constant Mean, the 4 books. The 4 books were the foundation of the official curriculum for 700 years, studied in Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. The master said, which is Confucius, repeatedly begins passages in Confucian Analects. And it's actually called Conversations. This is just the Analects it's the English title for it. So anyway.
it just means selection. It's a Greek word originally.
Okay. Anyway, I have something funny to say about this. I have this dear friend who is what's the name of that city again in Georgia? Atlanta. She's in Atlanta, I think.
Capital of Georgia.
She's been going back and forth to Europe though, because her husband is his parents. I think they're in Paris or something, but they've been going to Germany.
I think they were saying Bielefeld.
Okay.
In northwestern Germany.
All right. Well, anyway.
It's a rockin' place. I had a German instructor who came from there. She was very nice. So.
Very good. So anyway,
So all you people out there in Bielefeld, thank you for sending Kirsten over here.
So anyway, my friend, I met her up in the Peace Country. That's where we were both going to high school, and we've been friends for a long time, I guess. And well, we have. And anyway, so, but I just thought of it now. I just realized, oh wow, yes, our paths crossed, and somehow we've met. And I've spoken to a number of my friends that our paths have crossed, and somehow we keep in contact. And it's strange because many of them, like her, I have seen well, not even that recently, but anyway, many of my friends, I haven't seen them for years. There's one friend that's out in the Maritimes, and I haven't seen her since college. Well, that's a very long time, but somehow we keep in contact. Anyway, that's not important. Or, well, maybe it is, but it's not important for this. When I was with my ex-boyfriend and spending time with this friend that I mentioned who's in Georgia, or I predict she is. Anyway, I don't know.
No, I think she's in
I don't know where
Alabama.
she is.
I think her husband works he's a professor at the University of Alabama.
Oh, okay. See, I don't know where she is right now then.
Anyway.
Dear.
She could be, they were going to Bielefeld, Germany and stuff like that, and then whatever. So I think he'd be on leave or something. I'm not sure. Anyways, I figure he's doing research. Okay. What Bielefeld has to do with Hegel, I don't know. That's wild.
Anyway, okay, so, but a long, long time ago, about 20 years ago, I was hanging out with her and my ex, and I had made these wonderful fortune cookies from a recipe, and I don't remember the name of the cookbook, so I cannot help you out there. But it used orange flower water and ground almonds. It was delicious. And so I made these fortune cookies, and so we'd written up a bunch of fortunes for, and I think it was just my ex and I wrote the fortunes for the fortune cookies. I think it was already by the time she arrived, and yeah, I've always been this way. I cook, I make food, and people come to visit. So, and this is
the fortune cookie thing, didn't we, a little bit?
I don't know.
We thought about it. I
mean,
your ex had a sense of humor. Sometimes
Yes.
kind of a little bit pointed. So
Yes.
those fortunes were funny.
They were funny. And so I was laughing and laughing
Yeah.
over it. Some of the ones he came up with were brilliant. And I wish that I'd written them down and saved them, like save the fortunes, you know, or something, right? Because they were amazing. And really, he and I were quite good at entertaining company because he would talk and everyone would listen. And they just loved listening to him. I would marvel at how I just sit back and watch how everybody would just glow listening to him. It was beautiful. But you know, like James said, he could be mean, but somehow, most of the time, even when he was being cruel, or saying something, you know, that was a little bit harsh, most people would just still, it wouldn't ruin their spirits. I don't know how. He had a gift, and I would supply wonderful food, and so people felt very cared for when they came over to visit us, I think. And I feel happy for that I was able to be a part of that. But anyway, the fortunes. So one of them was Confucius says, Confucius says. And I laughed and laughed and laughed. That was one that he came up with, my ex. And if you don't understand it, I hope you do now that I've read this, right? My friend at the time, she was like, she couldn't make sense of it. And here she was. She had a master's of English and stuff. This is why you read widely, so that you can understand jokes that really brilliant people lay on you, and they're not going to explain it to you. He would not explain anything to me. I'd ask him something and it was a constant source of frustration for me because he would not tell me, whereas James will tell me when I don't understand something. But now I understand that he also had something valuable to teach me. Teach yourself. That's the most valuable thing you can ever do. The most valuable thing that you can ever teach anybody else is to pull up their own bootstraps and learn for themselves. So, how the passages begin in the Confucian Analects, the master said, which is Confucius. So some translations you might come across, Confucius says, yeah. Confucius says, Confucius says. So there you go. If my friend is watching and she has not went through and does not understand the joke, well, now she does. So I think that's probably all I have time on my camera for right now. No, there's a little bit of time.
Got it all in, eh?
Well,
that's pretty good.
I can talk about Christianity a little bit here. So lecture 25. I've started on Christian Testaments, Old and New. I'm going to stop it because there's noise, so I'll talk about it later.
Yeah.